Moonshiners, Season 14 Final. The last run, the Appalachian dawn cracked over the misty ridges, sunlight slicing through clouds like moonshine through a copper still. Deep in the hollow, hidden beneath a canopy of hickory and oak, Mark Ramsey and Digger Maines stood beside their still, steam rising, hearts pounding. The final batch of the season hissed as it dripped into mason jars, golden and smooth. "She's singin' sweet today," Digger muttered, checking the temperature. His grizzled beard twitched in the morning breeze. Mark gave a nod, eyes darting toward the tree line. "Too sweet. Something don't feel right." For weeks, they'd heard whispers. The law was getting bolder, coming down from the mountains, closer than ever before. Rumors flew through back channels and barbershops. ATF was gearing up for a raid. But Moonshiners know how to listen, and more importantly, how to vanish. This run was supposed to be their swan song for the season. A 20-gallon masterpiece using heirloom corn and a new strain of barley they'd smuggled in from Kentucky. But the air didn't smell like victory. It reeked of tension and burnt sugar. Suddenly, a faint crack of a twig snapped through the quiet. Mark froze. Digger ducked behind a pine. "Game wardens don't walk like that," Digger whispered. "That's boots. Heavy ones." They both knew what that meant. Not locals. Not a ranger out looking for deer poachers. Feds. Mark yanked the copper valve, shutting off the heat. "She's done. Let's ghost this place." But it was too late. Through the brush, 4 men appeared, 2 in tactical gear, 2 in plain clothes. One of them held a clipboard. Another had a body cam blinking red. "ATF. Nobody move." The lead agent barked, raising a shotgun. "Mark Ramsey. Digger Maines. You're under arrest for illegal distillation and distribution of untaxed spirits." Mark's eyes flicked to the pile of jars. 15 gallons of hard evidence. But Digger, ever the fox, smiled coolly. "Y'all got a warrant?" "We do," the agent replied, stepping forward. "Signed by a federal judge in Knoxville." "Well then," Digger said, tipping his hat. "Reckon you'll better find it. 'Cause you're standin' in McCreary County, Kentucky. That warrant's for Tennessee soil." The agents blinked. Mark seized the moment. Then chaos erupted. Digger chucked a jar of shine at the nearest agent. It shattered with a fiery splash. The agent yelped, blinded by booze. Mark grabbed the rest of the jars, smashing them into the fire pit. Flames roared up, masking their escape. They bolted into the woods like haints in the wind, their boots pounding mud, lungs burning. Behind them, the feds shouted, crashing through branches, but Mark and Digger were ghosts. Mountain-born, hollow-trained. They knew every rabbit trail and deer track in those hills. Cut to 3 hours later. An abandoned logging camp. Mark hunched over an old CB radio inside a rusted trailer, static hissing. Digger paced behind him, sweat soaking through his flannel. "I told you that spot was getting too hot," Mark muttered. "And I told you we should have moved it last week. But new? One more run. Digger, she's perfect." They bickered like brothers, but the fear was real. The ATF wasn't playing games anymore. They weren't just chasing moonshine. They were chasing legends. "Think they'll raid the barn?" Mark asked. Digger shook his head. "Nah, we cleaned that out after we moved the thumper. But we got heat now, real heat. We gotta disappear for a while." Mark looked out the window. "We could head to North Carolina. I got kin in Clay County." "Nah, too close. We gotta go big." Digger's eyes glinted. "We go to Popcorn's Cave." Mark's jaw dropped. That place ain't been touched since the feds nabbed him, exactly. Ain't nobody would dare look there again. Cut to midnight. Popcorn Sutton's hidden cavity cave was half collapsed, overgrown with kudzu and shadow. Inside, relics of the past remained, old copper coils, moldy barrels, a faded photo of Popcorn himself, middle finger up to the camera. Mark and Digger worked in silence, clearing rubble, setting up a small still with what parts they had left. "This ain't for sellin'," Digger said. "This one's for us. One last cook for old time's sake." Mark nodded. If this is the end, might as well go out with a bang. As the still bubbled, they sat back, sipping from a jar of the last good batch. "I ain't scared," Mark said. "Me neither," Digger replied. "We ain't criminals. We're craftsmen. And if they can't see that, well, that's their loss." They toasted to the smoke-filled ceiling, to the old ways. Cut to next morning. The cave is surrounded, the air cracked with radio chatter. A drone buzzed overhead. Lights flashed through the brush. They were surrounded. Digger sighed, taking a final swig. "Guess they found us." But Mark was calm. "We knew this day'd come." They stepped out slowly, hands raised. But then, chaos. A voice shouted from the hill. "Rock slide. Get back," a rumble. A crash. Trees snapped like matchsticks. For cover, the agents of the ridge collapsed, triggered by recent rain. In the confusion, Mark and Digger vanished once again, ghosts among ghosts. 2 weeks later, a gas station in Georgia pickup truck rolled up. 2 bearded men stepped out. One paid for gas. The other grabbed a sausage biscuit. On the back window, a sticker. "Legalize shine." Inside the cab were mason jars full of sweet tea. Or maybe not. Mark grinned. "Think they'll ever catch us?" Digger chuckled, driving off down the dusty road. "Only if we want 'em to." Post-credit scene. An office in D.C. A young agent placed a file marked Moonshiners. Case #4428 on a dusty shelf. His supervisor walked by. "They still out there?" The agent shrugged. "They say you can hear 'em on quiet nights. Still cookin'. Still runnin'." The supervisor laughed. "Hell, I hope so." Fade to black. Text on screen. "In memory of Popcorn Sutton and the outlaw tradition of Appalachian craftsmanship." The mist rolled thick over the Tennessee hills, curling like ghosts through the trees as dawn crept into the Appalachian woods. Mark Ramsey and Digger Maines stood shoulder to shoulder in the early haze, the fire under their still crackling as liquid gold dripped slow and steady into mason jars. The new batch was smooth, apple brandy aged with a secret spice blend they'd picked up from an old-timer in Cock County. "This one's special," Digger murmured, rubbing soot from his hands. "Tastes like autumn in a jar." Mark nodded, eyes darting toward the tree line. "Ain't the only thing in the air this mornin'." The 2 men had been running hard all season, fighting off rival shiners, dodging wildlife, climbing steeper and deeper into the backwoods to stay ahead of the law. But the game had changed. Word was, the ATF had sent in a new team. Fresh agents with drones, tech, and satellite imaging. It wasn't just about finding stills anymore. It was about making an example. Frankie said they raided Amos's place last week. Mark said, voice low. Smashed his still, cuffed his boy, even took his dog. Digger's jaw clenched. No respect. They come in like it's a war zone. Feels like one, Mark muttered. Then came the sound they both dreaded. A low hum, like an angry bee. Digger looked up. Drone. A flicker of metal zipped overhead through the branches. Mark leaped into motion. Cut it. Dump the mash. They moved fast. like they'd rehearsed it 100 times, because they had. Mark yanked the copper lines loose. Diva smashed open the fermenters. The ground was suddenly a soup of steaming mash and broken jars. They didn't run yet, not until the signal came. The drone hovered for a moment, then zipped away. Too quiet, Diva said. They're setting up. We got minutes, not hours. From behind the trees, distant engine sounds hummed, too deep for pickups. Black Suburbans. It was go time. The Chasby the time the feds arrived. All they found was an empty clearing, wet ash, and one intact mason jar sitting on a stump. Taped to the jar was a note: "Too slow, boys. See y'all in the rear view." M&DT agents cursed, radioed for backup, and fanned out into the woods. Mark and Diva were already 2 hollers away, climbing toward an old coal trail that wound up into the highlands. They had a 4-wheeler stashed beneath brush and top, and as soon as they hit it, they tore uphill, tires spitting mud like buckshot. "Where we headed?" Mark called over the roar. "Pine Hollow," Diva shouted. "Ain't been up there in years. Old trails washed out, but it's off the grid." Mark grinned despite the chaos. "You always did save the best hiding spots." Pine Hollow, safe house. They reached the hollow by sunset, an abandoned logging shack half swallowed by vines and pine. No power, no water, but no road in and no one watching. Inside, Digger opened a rotting floorboard and pulled out a dusty wooden box. Inside, tools, maps, burner phones, and an old revolver wrapped in oilcloth. "Insurance," he said. Mark whistled low. "You ever think we come back here?" "Nope," Digger said. "But I always planned to." As darkness fell, they made a fire, cracked open 2 jars of saved shine, and listened to the frogs sing in the creek bed. "You think they'll stop?" Mark asked. Diva shook his head. "We embarrassed 'em. They won't stop till we're in cuffs or gone for good." Mark nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's time." Mark and Digger spent 2 days trekking through the holler, hauling copper and scrap from an old storage cave. They worked in silence, side by side, building not just any still, but a trap, a decoy. They wanted the feds to find it. They wanted it to look like they were getting sloppy, desperate. The idea was simple: give the agents something shiny to chase, while the real action happened elsewhere. Digger raked the mash barrels with fish guts and sulfur. Anyone getting close would think they'd found something awful. Then they set up trail cams and fake paths, making it look like they'd panicked and left in a rush. They even left behind 2 empty jugs marked Spring 24.